and you put it in the room, and it covers about 10 feet circular. So you could put up to 4 of those into a room, and that would cover a room 10, probably about 40 by 20 or 40 by 30. It would cover pretty well if you had an HDX 8000. It would give you excellent audio. Now, would it cover the room perfectly? Well, it's always a compromise when you're using ceiling-mounted microphones. The people a little farther away will sound a little more distant, but they will be picked up very well. It's an excellent audio system, very simple to hook up, nothing to mount, no big hanging device or anything you have to mount. It's just a little box. Good news is that box is Plentum rated, which means you can legally put it up above the ceiling without having to worry about the fire marshal having an issue with it. And then the cable comes all the way out and plugs into the codec itself. So you can actually mix those together. You might have 2 ceiling-mounted microphones and 2 tabletop microphones on an HDX 8000. You can certainly do that. Now, one of the other things you can have is that IP7000, that big speakerphone. It's good for about a 20-foot circle, okay? And it's capable of picking up audio through that 20-foot circle and does a beautiful job with it. You can even dial the video system directly from the keypad on that on the IP7000. The other thing you can do is have multiple, up to 2, IP7000s cascaded together and plugged into the HDX. It does a very good job in that environment in a large room. Now, it is an IP phone. It is not a POTS or plain old telephone system phone. It is designed to be used with an IP call manager and IP call environment if you're going to use it for audio conferencing. So just be aware of that. You could kind of sneak around and plug the POTS line into the HDX. It does have a POTS port on the back of the HDX 8000, and then use the speakerphones to call, but you'd be actually making the call not through the speakerphone, but actually through the HDX. And it would use the audio system, the speaker system of the HDX itself. Okay. To the right, the big black box over there, that happens to be a sound structure. We have several models of sound structures, and these are computerized, very intelligent audio mixing systems that are designed to work with the HDX. It knows about the HDX. It knows how to talk to the HDX. The idea is to be able to give you more programming control over the audios in a room. I built a room down in Kennedy Space Center a few years ago, and we actually used the sound structure environment to allow us to do sound reinforcement in the room. Now, what's sound reinforcement? Let's say I have a long room, and down there I did. It was 56 feet long. It was located near the VAB. It was an observation room, but it was also a conference room. They have one large conference table. They had push-to-talk microphones at every other chair. What they wanted to be able to do is to be able to have someone push the button and talk and have the sound reinforcement come out in the room as it so people at the other end of the room could hear just as well as the people near the person speaking. So we actually built zones into the room and improved the audio, made the audio louder as it got farther away from the person speaking. And each time the push-to-talk mic triggered, whether it was on one end of the table or the other end or in the middle, it would then set up the appropriate zoning and amplify the audio going out. It worked very nicely. Things like that can be done to enhance the local audio while still being able to use it with a video conferencing system. That's called our sound structure. There are a number of models of sound structure. We're not really here talking about sound structure today, but it's something to look into if you're building a large environment or an environment where you need many microphones plugged in, many being upwards of 64, I believe, is the upper limit. I might be wrong on that, but it's a large number of microphones. The colored little balls down there on the bottom right-hand side, those are additional microphones. They're not from Polycom. They're third-party microphones that are available. Just to say, we can connect other microphones to a Polycom system. It does not have to be a Polycom microphone. I can plug in a lav mic, wireless mic. The large environment that I did with Mr. Andy Miller and Mr. Jeffrey Katzenberg happened to be a large room, a big ballroom in Orlando. We had 2,300 people in the audience. Andy had a lavalier microphone. Mr. Katzenberg happened to be using the same microphone I'm using today, and it worked out beautifully. So the audio systems within the HDX are very, very good. Okay. Some additional features that the HDX has that I thought I'd point out: closed captioning. We don't think about that much. We don't really sell it as a focused piece, but it can be very important. Closed captioning can certainly work in an environment where it's very noisy and you can't hear the people. You think of the bars that you go to where they have closed captioning up on the TV. I like it because now I can read what's being said. I don't necessarily have to try to hear what's being said. That's one way to use it, but the other thing could be done very easily with closed captioning with the help of a translator, is being able to have an audio or a video conference in one language, English, and maybe somebody translating it in Portuguese and typing the Portuguese translation into the closed captioning. That can be done fairly easily. So keep that in mind. That could be something very handy to do, and that's only on the video side of the house. Works very well. We have an extensive set of API commands for the HDX, allowing you to customize it. That's how all the people who use AMX and Crestron, actually it's how we use the touch control, uses those commands. That command set allows us to create calls, create environments, to mute, change audio, change cameras if we want to. That all can be done very easily. I point that out because that API command set can be triggered by many things. Something even as simple as an Android phone device could even be used to trigger those commands if you wanted to, assuming you were on a Wi-Fi network. I point that out so that you can be creative. Maybe you have some ideas, some other ways of using our system. Wonderful to think of the creativity that's out there today in building custom systems. H323 and SIP support, I've mentioned this already, but we do fully support H323 and SIP. I did not mention there H320, and that can be very important, especially in the military groups. They're using KIV or KG encryption, and they do have the external encryptors. We do have the ability to accept those through a V.35 high-speed serial interface if necessary, and that's available as an added option to most of the HDX product line, certainly the 7000, 8000, 9000, and 6000. We also support H460 firewall traversal. That's Polycom's version of the firewall traversal capability. And we fully support that. So if you're behind a firewall and you have the video border proxy capability built somewhere, you can actually connect to it, and without having to do anything special to the firewall, to actually be able to go out there and traverse the firewall without any problem. That's also built in. Another thing certainly important to many people coming now is the IPv6 support. It's been in there for a long time. Version 3.0 fully supports the IPv6 capability. So if you have the requirement to go IPv6 in the future, not many people are doing it yet, but if you need it, it's there and available for you and will be there. This happens to be a chart showing the various HDX products, the HDX 6, 7, 8, and 9. And as you can see, it's an eye chart. I'm sorry it's not bigger, but you can get a general idea. Gives you the capabilities, and generally they're what environment we see them in. For instance, 9000's high performance solution, primarily for integration. The 8000 is really the probably the most sold system that we have, though the 7000 is a good beginner system, and the 6000 really is designed as a beginner system because it only has 2 video inputs and 1 video output. Down there you can see on the list QoS capabilities, people and content across the board. Notice that people on content is only available on the 8000 and 9000 series. But you can take a look at this. Certainly it's not the end-all be-all for all the information about the HDX, I would highly recommend you go onto the Polycom website. There you can get the complete documentation for all the HDX product lines. You can also get installation charts, installation capabilities. You can get some white papers on there of usage. We've started building a large group of white papers showing how people are using our HDX product line, oftentimes ways that we never thought of. But we're glad to see them being creative and coming up with new ways to use our technology. Also, the online support, there is a community there called community.polycom.com. If you don't have a critical question, something you're asking and just trying to find out information, that's certainly a good way to do it. Many Polycom employees are member of that community, and also many people out in the public are also members of that community and may be able to help you out. Certainly not the place to report bugs. That's done through Polycom support, of course. But it is a place to go look for additional information. And that's about it. Thank you for your time, and I appreciate your time, and I hope this has been informational to you, and have a great day. Thank you. Hello, my name's Gary Miyakawa. I'm here to talk to you about the HDX product line, specifically the HDX 8000 and their sister products, the 8000, 7000, 6000. I want to show you how they go together, maybe how to start them up, how to configure it, and how to make a video call. So we're going to go through the parts and pieces that we have here to show you. So we're going to start out. This is the codec. This is the big guy. He's the guy who does all the hard work. He's the one that all the money gets spent for, basically. So the camera's expensive too. On the back side of the codec, you'll see all the working area. Basically, they're the inputs and the outputs. On this side, they happen to be the camera inputs, camera 1, camera 2. Below that will be your content input. That's where you plug in your laptop when you want to send content. The ITU standard name for content is H239, so you may have heard it called that. Some other vendors may have it under a different name. I know one that calls it Duo Video, but they're all basically similar. As long as they meet standards and H239 standards, then they should be able to communicate and send presentations. Okay. Below that are some ports that are used for VCR connectivity, for VCR in and VCR out. You'll notice that the VCR in is limited and VCR out is limited to S video. That's what we expect in and out for the VCR. If you happen to have a VCR. Digital video recorder would also work there too. So we do in and out using S-video and standard audio. Below that are my two monitor ports. It's going to be monitor port 1 and monitor port 2. They are DVI ports. So we expect to have DVI coming out of this, though we have configuration capabilities to allow us to adapt that to be component with a cable, and I'll show you that in a few minutes, or possibly DVI to to a VGA adapter. That would work also. And you'd use a software configuration on the codec itself to tell the codec what format to send it out. And we can take an output all the way up to a 1080p output, so it's 1920 by 1080. So we have that. Down here's the power supply, standard power cord, 110 to probably 240. I've never pushed it past that, though in the US it tends to be 110. Above that I have two RJ45 connections. One is the RJ45 for the IP port coming in. The other is a Siamese port coming back out. So you can actually come in with a cable and then come out and plug that into your laptop if you wanted to, or maybe an IP phone or something like that. Be cautious though, that output port, should the codec be turned off, also gets turned off. So it's not an always on port. Above that, in the little blue range right here, that happens to be my alternate network connectivity port. That port happens to be used for PRI, ISDN connectivity for PRI, or BRIs. The BRI adapter, or doghouse as we laughingly call it sometimes, it allows us to plug in 4 BRI ports. Okay, so that'd be a total of about 512K call. Certainly on a PRI port, we could go all the way up to, depending on whether